On legalization, urging state legislators to put a bill on his desk, including on his Twitter account. And it appears that Shapiro was very much in line with voters. According to a new poll from Responsible PA, an organization backing legalization, in conjunction with Change Research, 74% of voters support legalization. And that includes 53% of Republicans, 62% of independents, and a whopping 85% of Democrats. But voters say they prefer a private model rather than state-run stores, as lawmakers have proposed dueling versions of a regulatory framework, one of which would give the state control of cannabis sales similar to the state's liquor stores. Now, Pennsylvania has tried to legalize cannabis before to no avail, but Shapiro says legalization could add $1.3 billion to state coffers within the first 5 years. To the White House, will President Trump's administration push federal cannabis reform? That's the question the industry has been asking since Trump posted in support of Florida's failed bid to legalize in November, as well as banking reform and moving cannabis to Schedule 3. But according to the White House, it's not on the radar yet. Specifically, here's a quote: "No action is being considered at this time." That is a quote from an unnamed White House official to CNN. Still, the CNN story did have an interesting tidbit. Trump's team apparently tried to put pieces of the Safer Banking Act, a bill that would normalize the industry's relationship to the financial sector, into the December continuing resolution to keep the government funded. But of course, that didn't happen. And a little bit more from the White House. President Trump tapped Sarah Carter, who is a right-wing journalist and a Fox News contributor, as the director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. According to a report from Marijuana Moment, Carter has spoken favorably of medical cannabis and said on her podcast last year that she doesn't have a problem if cannabis is legalized for recreational use. Of course, what you say on a podcast and what happens when you're in office can be two very different things, as we have learned. Canadian cannabis firm Organigram is expanding into the U.S. via an acquisition of the Collective Project Limited, a cannabis and hemp beverage company. Organigram will pay $6.2 million Canadian up front, with a total payouts of 24 million Canadian dollars. It's the latest big cannabis firm to get into the hemp-derived beverage market after Tilray, Curaleaf, and many others. To New York. The New York Office of Cannabis Management is close to naming a new chief equity officer, the position first held by Damian Fagan, and has been unfilled since he left the role last year. And speaking of people moves in New York, cannabis, Dashita Dawson is leaving Cannabis NYC, which was a city agency designed to support the burgeoning industry, she said on LinkedIn. Dawson was the agency's founding executive director and served in the role since 2022. And if you want even more about New York cannabis, earlier this week, we connected with Nick Guarino of Jaunty and Vince Ning of Nabis to talk about a nagging issue in New York cannabis. And that nagging issue is the misalignment of revenue producers collect and their excise tax payments that are due to the state of New York. You can catch a full segment on our YouTube channel, but here's a clip in case you missed it.
Fundamentally, the problem that we have is there's a misalignment between the tax collection cycle and the actual revenue collection cycle for the operators in the state. When they wrote the regulations, they said distributors can give the retailers 30 days in terms. And then another group that was writing the tax part of this wrote operators must file and pay their taxes 20 days after the quarter ends. In a perfect world, if there was always 30-day terms and people paid right on time, it wouldn't be a massive misalignment. It would be like a 10 to 15-day misalignment. But what really happens is it takes about 45 to 50 days for you to collect from a retailer. Retailers are all brand new businesses as well that need funding and terms to be able to run their businesses. So operators don't have a choice but to give terms, and stores don't have a choice but they need terms. And so when it takes 45 to 50 days to pay, operators end up footing the tax bill for 35% of the sales in that quarter.
And finally, one fun thing. Now, it was April 1st on Tuesday, and with April 1st come some funny business and pranks and April Fool's jokes. Our joke winner on Tuesday was erstwhile Democratic candidate for president, Dean Phillips, who said he was joining Elon Musk's Department of Government Analysis for National Joint Advancement, DOGANJA, to weed out corruption and develop green initiatives. It's pretty funny. All of these stories and much more can be found on our website, which is at cultivated.news. And that is it for This Week in Cannabis News, powered by Dutchie. We would love for you to follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Check back here next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, Cultivated's LinkedIn page and our YouTube channel to catch This Week in Cannabis News, powered by Dutchie. Be sure to get our newsletter in your inbox every morning at cultivated.news. And another thank you to our partners at Dutchie, who make this show possible every single week. A link to find out more about Dutchie is in the show notes and the comments. Thank you so much. Have a good and safe weekend.